Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you to our webinar, FlexDeploy on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Happy to see a very nice crowd of people join. It looks like a mixed bag of some new customers or potential customers, some existing partners, the whole mixed bag. So it's great to see. And we're going to focus on our Jumpstart Demo Labs for Oracle E-Business Suite, SOA, and containers. Really talk a lot about how you can get to learn different aspects of FlexDeploy, or if it's your first time, or get to know it from front to back. So let's get started with a couple housekeeping pieces. If you would be willing to put your questions into the chat room, we'll answer those toward the end. And we'll get that, and then we will be following up after this with a recording and sending you the recording and a few links to the Jumpstart Demo Labs. All right, so let's frame this up a little bit. As many of you know, there's a lot of drivers for change that are really accelerating the delivery of our software, our systems in general, while improving quality, cost, and risk, whether that's a heavy dose of cloud and enterprises executing against cloud strategies, or other things that are driving agility into the enterprise and process and tooling around CI/CD, release automation, and the broader DevOps. A lot of that anchored in heavy automation. So with that said, Flexagon is a software company that's all about addressing those challenges, and our FlexDeploy DevOps platform gets after a lot of those use cases and scenarios by really creating a platform that orchestrates and integrates a tool set across anywhere from planning through operation. And by doing so, we have features and capabilities around build automation, deploy automation, and release orchestration, all nicely knitted together so that you can achieve the results you're looking for as quickly and efficiently as possible, and then on an ongoing basis. And so not only do we have those broad platform features in build, deploy, and release, but there's many plugins and integrations to popular tools and technologies in the tool chain, whether it's on the front end with things like Jira, source control like Git and Subversion, and then throughout the entire tool chain, including some of the technologies that we're focused on today as part of this webinar, such as Oracle's E-Business Suite and SOA Suite, as well as containerization with things like Docker and Kubernetes. So we'll dig into that and bring all this stuff to life, but I think it's an opportunity for us to really showcase a couple different examples of, you might say, the extremes of this chart. So on the far left-hand side, E-Business Suite as really a packaged app that is a monolithic type of architecture, tends to be on-prem with heavy, you might say, traditional SDLC processes, waterfall-like. And so how do we take advantage of and improve our processes in and around that technology? On the other end of the spectrum, maybe the containerization, right? So using microservices-based architectures and things like containers with Docker and Kubernetes allow us to effectively drive native cloud type of solutions as well. So just a perspective, and then our ability to showcase these things as part of these demo labs gives you a little perspective of how we think about the problem space and how we solve these things. We talk about plugins and integrations, and this is a little bit of a busy chart, but if you work around from basically the upper left around the clock there, the examples of integrations with source control systems. Git is what we're going to be using in the demo lab today. The different types of automated test tools, whether that be SoapUI and Oracle's application test suite, a couple other tools that we'll highlight in the demo labs, or many other technologies on the right-hand side, some of which we're going to showcase today, as well as on the bottom. The key is lots of out-of-the-box capabilities that eliminate a lot of the scripting, eliminate a lot of the manual activities and such, so you get to take advantage of that. So let's talk a little bit about the Jumpstart Demo Labs that run on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure and leverage the cloudable services. And what are the objectives of these demo labs? Well, first and foremost, it's to make it very easy to test drive FlexDeploy in a hands-on way. Right? So basically, reduce the barrier to entry so that you can get that first-hand view in the process for understanding either as a brand new customer how FlexDeploy works, or as an existing customer how maybe an extension or some other capability might work. For others, it makes it easy to demonstrate FlexDeploy. So an example of that is a partner, right? So a partner that we work with, they're going to market so they can very easily spin up one of these demo labs and showcase that, either that to their internal team or externally to a potential customer. Just a couple examples of how we can make it easy to test drive and demonstrate FlexDeploy. So the other very important part is showcasing Oracle's cloud infrastructure. So we call it OCI, and it's some exceptional cloud infrastructure that has a lot of capabilities associated with it. And we take advantage of that at a very low level, as well as some of the services that sit on the base, such as like Oracle Kubernetes engine. So showcasing what you can do and the types of applications, middleware, databases, so on and so forth that can be run on the OCI. And then as well showcase a lot of Oracle technologies, other open source tools and products, and other commercial products as well. So the OCI supports running many different types of technologies, Oracle, open source, and other. Of course, FlexDeploy does as well, a very open and enterprise-grade platform for all technologies. And so we bring that all to bear as a key objective of the demo labs. So what are they? What are they? Okay, they're pre-configured environments, right, that run on OCI. So reduce the barrier, right, and knit together and configure all of the key pieces that will make it easy for you to go hands-on and really understand, because it's a pre-configured environment. And that's in a couple ways. It's anywhere from source control system, Git in this particular case, test tools, the database, middleware, apps, other services, whatever it needs for that particular demo lab. It'll all be installed, configured, and pre-configured. Then FlexDeploy itself is fully configured. So rather than have you go through the exercise of needing to set things up administratively, things like topology and workflows and projects, it's all done for you. So you can quickly go in there and understand and walk through use cases to make it very simple and easy to do that. While at the same time, you can extend it, you can change things. You have the best of both worlds all within one demo lab. In addition to that, the portal of the demo labs provides some other information. So for example, guided tours, videos, or paper that walks you through different scenarios that are interesting for FlexDeploy in the context of whatever the technologies are, the specific demo lab, presentations, pointers to product documentation or blog articles, a lot of things in the portal that support the actual demo lab itself. And who can use them? I mentioned customers and partners, existing, certainly prospective customers and partners, lots of new customers that we work with day in and day out or looking at FlexDeploy, or partners similarly where we haven't worked with them. If you're interested in looking at the product, you can get the hands-on, get a good overview of that. And in terms of how do we access them, well, we'll talk about that and give you links to the information and such. But a couple pieces there. They're 2-hour demo lab sessions. So you'll provision them just by clicking a button, and it will fire up the full environment in about 10 or 15 minutes, depending on the specific demo lab, and then that'll be active for 2 hours. And you can have 2 of those sessions, okay? And so it gives plenty of time to be able to go up and spin them up, play around with them, and get comfortable at, with understanding what FlexDeploy might be able to do for you, either as an existing customer or new customer. Well, let's talk a little bit about the 3 labs that are available today. The first being with containers. So in this specific lab, we have Git as a source control system. It's a microservices-based architecture. So we have 3 microservices, a Jet front end, a Java back end, and then an Oracle database for persistent store. As the title says, it's container-based, so we use Docker, Docker Runtime, Docker Hub, and the Oracle Kubernetes engine to be able to both build Docker images from these microservices and then deploy them into the Oracle Kubernetes engine. Along the way, we feel automated testing is very important. And so as part of the demo lab, it has a SoapUI-based test that's configured to be executed after deployments occur. So that's the FlexDeploy and Containers demo lab. The next is for Oracle's e-business suite. So similarly, it has Git as the source control system that is housing the changes, the customizations, like forms and reports and PL SQLs and Java and all these sorts of things. It has the e-business suite, runtimes, the environments themselves, and then it has Oracle's application test suite, so a popular tool that we see our customers use in the market. All right, so last but not least, we have FlexDeploy and Oracle SOA Suite. Oracle SOA Suite is part of the Fusion middleware suite of technologies, and traditionally have been run on-prem, similar to what Oracle e-business suite was. But it's a very popular set of capabilities, and therefore we want to showcase that running on Oracle's cloud infrastructure. And so whether that's using Git in this case, and then the other componentry in and around the SOA suite like SOA and the composites, OSB, MDS, as well as WebLogic resources. And in this particular context, we use SoapUI to drive tests associated with those deployments. So those, in the macro sense, are what the Jumpstart Demo Labs are all about. If we continue on here, so the real question is, so how do we, or how are these demo labs configured, and what bring this to life a little bit? Well, we talk a little bit about build, deploy, and release as being the anchor points in terms of platform features. And so what you'll see, and I'll show you some of this briefly as part of this webinar, is each of these platform features come to life in terms of build, where we're going to pull things out of a source control system, package them up, store them in the artifact repository, as well as have the optional ability to use the built-in continuous integration capabilities of the FlexDeploy platform. Then we're going to deploy those into some lower level or test environments, in multiple environments, and depending on the lab itself and what the technology is, it could be deploying into a database, into the middleware, app tier, what have you. And there is some perspective on things like provisioning and configuration management or server management in terms of being able to start and stop servers as part of the automated process, but that's a little bit less of a focus of our demo labs. And the other piece there is, I guess I should have mentioned this up front, we use Terraform to be able to spin up all of this or provision these cloud resources and everything to get things up and running. So that's an element that you don't have or doesn't surface to you as part of the demo lab, but it's an underpinning of how we work and use Terraform to be able to make the magic happen in terms of spinning up those cloud resources and the associated resources for each demo lab. Last but not least, the release capability. So you'll see what these pipelines are all about, how we have release for content, being able to create snapshots of that and inject quality gates. So all of that and those features, so you can get a good perspective of those platform features, as well as how security works for the automated testing and other things like controls. So how do you govern the process of moving changes across an environment? How do you leverage things like logs or dashboards or reports? So all of that is at your disposal and pre-configured as part of these demo labs. Okay, so that's a setup for what we're talking about here. So let's really take a look at a few of these demo labs. We're going to focus on one because in general, what you see in one versus the others is going to be very similar. And other than the specific technologies and how they work, but we'll give you a little bit of an example there. So this happens to be a screenshot just to set the context. Why don't we go ahead and I will share or move to one of the live demo labs. So what I brought up here is the FlexDeploy and Oracle SOA Suite Demo Lab. And a little while ago, I went ahead and provisioned this. So if we would have come into this originally, basically all I did was I clicked this Demo Lab button, all right? And then it spun it up in, I believe it was a little under 10 minutes for this lab, okay? And so that's what you need to do, and then you'll follow the process that it'll basically have a countdown, and it'll say it's going to take 10 minutes or so, and then it'll count down, and then it'll launch and say, hey, your demo lab is ready. It'll give you the information you need, like a URL, which is right here, for you to launch FlexDeploy itself, and you'll be off and running. Okay, then you'll follow a very quick process so that you'll be able to log into FlexDeploy and get on with executing your demo lab. So there's a few things here that are very important. I've alluded to them a little bit, but let's just take a little closer look. If you see in the upper right-hand corner, we have a few resources scrolling through. So for example, there's a 3-minute overview of the demo lab. There is a 30-minute guided tour. So it's another video that basically takes you step by step through a series of use cases. But the intent for those who want to use that video experience is they can watch the video, start and stop it as they want, and then jump in and out, right, and go hands-on with FlexDeploy in your actual demo lab. So it's a way to learn by watching and then doing. So that'll work for some people. You also have the ability to use the other user manual. So here is a guided tour right here that I'm pointing to that has a manual with screenshots and text that basically does the same thing as the video, but it does it in a document. So some people can learn and work through that type of format more effectively. In addition, within the portal, you'll have other things like white papers, product overview, so a presentation that might provide more context around what you're seeing, things like data sheets and a link to product documentation, other things that might be interesting to you as you try to learn more about FlexDeploy. Okay, so that's an example for the Oracle SOA Suite. The other labs are similar in structure, with the content, of course, tailored to those specific technologies and tools that make up that demo lab. Well, with that said, let's just go ahead and go over to the FlexDeploy. And I've already logged in here, so I went through that process. It was provisioned, and now I'm logged in. And so although this isn't all about trying to give you an end-to-end overview, we want you to go and experience this yourself. I'll spend a few minutes here, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, walking through some of this so you get a flavor for what this lab looks like and maybe the art of the possible for how you might be able to leverage it. So we're logged in, and in essence, there's a number of things that you'll want to look at, and including examples of workflows. Well, looks like I've timed out there, so I'll log in as the admin because that's what I set myself up as. And so now we're back in the UI here, and we can go ahead and jump into the workflows. You'll see that over on the left-hand side, there's a number of them, including well, a whole bunch of them. We won't enumerate them, but if you look down here under Oracle, you'll see anywhere from the MDS that we talked about, Service Bus, SOA, and what have you. So you'll easily be able to go take a look at these, look at things like the definition, understand how the canvas is laid out, if you will, in concert with some tools, a palette of tools, both workflow operations and plugin operations over here. And then you can quickly navigate around looking for the things that are important. So in this particular environment, because it's the SOA Suite lab, if I type in and filter over SOA, well, as a matter of fact, you'll see first and foremost the Oracle SOA Cloud. So we have a cloud resource management plugin within FlexDeploy that's not a highlighted plugin as part of this specific demo lab, but just know that happens to exist. So you can look around and see what those things are and how you might be able to leverage them. But then specifically there is the example of the SOA Suite plugin and the different plugin operations that were used to create this. So it's an example where not only can you walk around and look at this pre-configured information, but you could also go here and make a copy, change some things up, and really play around firsthand to get a better sense for how FlexDeploy works, right? And then, like I said, although the focus for this guy is SOA Suite, you can also look at other things. I'm just bringing up WebLogic as a typical example, since it goes so hand in hand with the Fusion middleware or SOA, and you could take a look at the different plugin operations that exist there, all right, and play around with those things. So that's an example of a build workflow in this particular case of how we'll pull information out of a source control system, save our test files, those SoapUI tests, and then perform the build. And then on the deploy, a simple one plug-in step operation, okay? So not trying to get into too much detail, but after we do those things, another example of something you'll want to go look at are the projects. So if you're not familiar at all with FlexDeploy, there's projects that really tie to any specific technology. So in this case, I've opened up the SOA project. There's a number of tabs here. I'll just bring up the configuration tab. So you'll be able to drill into this and understand how do we configure this to tie to the source control system, in this case Git. How do we tie those workflows for building and deploying different artifacts, right, and what does that look like? Be able to, in essence, play around and firsthand get that type of experience, as well as looking at the other types of things, whether that's how we set up our testing, how we might set up continuous integration by simply creating some triggers and such. But all of that is up to you, and you can navigate around and check things out at your, however you'd like. So from there, we get to actually build and deploy things. So, right, we've got things set up. We can say, let's go ahead and build and tie this particular project to this release that we're going to look at in a minute. And so I submit that. And now in real time, it's going to kick off the workflow. It's going to create those build artifacts. And then eventually it's going to create a snapshot of what's called a release. And a release, just to give you a sense for that, is the content, either one project such as the specific SOA composite, or in this case, a release is multiple things that we're going to work on together. So we've got anywhere from the SOA composite and service bus to the associated MDS objects and the WebLogic configurations like data sources. I think there's maybe JMS in here, some of the EIS or adapter entries. So all of that detail, okay? And so in essence, once the build is completed that we just kicked off, it's going to create a snapshot. And what you'll see there, now this guy is obviously a little old here. What you'll see is we went over to the dashboard, and you'll note that this is a demo lab that was created fall of 2018. And so that same image is being used, and therefore why this 10/10 date exists, because we had some pre-primed data in this particular environment. Okay, so now you see that this just kicked off because that build completed, and it created a snapshot for this release. And so now what's going to happen, if I click up on that, we'll see that it's going to start executing the content across this pipeline. You'll see there were no gates configured, and so it's going to automatically deploy the projects, execute some tests, and move on into the next stage of the pipeline. So we're not going to get into the details here, but this is a perfect example where you'll be able to drill in, go into whatever level of detail that you want, and really investigate the different aspects of FlexDeploy. For a release, as an example, is being able to say, what's the snapshot content? What is in here exactly? Right? What's the detail? What's the versions of each of the projects, so on and so forth? Or by drilling into the different steps within the execution of a stage within a pipeline. Okay, that sort of thing. And then once you get familiar with all of that, you'll be able to look at things like reports, look at the current state of everything, look at the history of what's been deployed and where, all sorts of information that you'll be able to play around with. As well as on the other end of the spectrum, I should highlight this because it tends to be pretty popular, but for every activity at a project level, you have the ability to go and drill in to things like an execution ID to see, oh, these tests that we just kicked off, here's exactly what happened. And here's the data that surrounds that, right? Oh, here's a deployment that just occurred. And so that's where we deployed that SOA composite and all of the details associated with that. So you can drill into the information that you're interested in, get familiar with that. All right? And then other things that I don't think I went to before, but like the dashboard. So you can drill around here looking at information that's more real-time in nature, some historical data, maybe some execution of the test information. So other things that give you insight that you're able to check out real-time. All right, so hopefully that gives you a sense for what the lab is, in this case, the Oracle SOA Suite lab. I have spun up another lab, so if I just jump over to the next tab, this is an example where very similarly, it has the same format that we described, and you'll be able to navigate around there, look at those resources, and execute that demo lab and have a good experience there. If we go into the lab itself, so we fired FlexDeploy up, and the only thing I'll show you here, because I don't want to go through that same process, but in this case, let's just maybe take a look at the container workflows, which are going to be significantly different. Well, as a matter of fact, let's do this. Let's go into the container project, open what's called the Olympics here, and take a look at the two, both the back end and the front end. So that's really what we're going to be dealing with here in terms of the microservices. And if we go into the workflows, you'll notice that as I'm drilling around here, there is nothing primed in this particular environment. We chose not to prime anything, so it's basically just a bare provisioning with no execution or runtime information. But if we just crack open a few of these, for example, you'll see that, well, as expected or maybe expected, the specific workflow for Java to Tomcat build, so to build the Docker image for, of that Java application, and that's going to run on a Tomcat app server. That's going to be different than what we looked at before for the SOA suite. We go to the definition, we'll see that that is basically building up all the artifacts that's needed for a Docker type of architecture or runtime, build those, push the image out to, in this case, configured to Docker Hub, and then prepare what's called a deployment profile. Similar with Jet, there's a Jet application. Jet's a great technology. We see that used by quite a few customers and growing pretty rapidly. And so we chose that as an example with an Nginx runtime. So in that particular case, we can look at the workflow and what it's going to do. So it's going to build using OJet build. It's going to build the image. It's going to push that image again, similar to the other one, and do the preparement of the deployment profile. So that sort of thing. And so you'll be able to work your way around through that, or again with the deployment to Kubernetes and to the Oracle Kubernetes engine. So that runs on or as part of the OCI. You'll be able to see how that comes into play. The other thing is, I know I covered some of this a few minutes ago, but maybe you want to look at the Docker, the Docker plugin itself. And if you're familiar with Docker, you can envision how this would work in your environment. If you're not, well, we have some specific examples. And just a subset, given it's a relatively short experience in terms of what we're trying to accomplish or the objectives of a demo lab. Similarly, if we look at Kubernetes, that's an example where there are different plugin operations that are used. In this case, I believe this is an apply. So to apply that Docker image or that file into the Kubernetes engine. So examples of what you might be able to look around at, learn from, and get some experience with as part of this lab. All right, so that's really the main part of what I wanted to share with all of you. So let's backtrack here. And I didn't call out the eBusiness Suite demo lab, but very similar. It just so happens to focus on what's the configuration, how does it work to build and deploy eBusiness Suite customizations, right? And effectively do the same things that we were talking about for both the SOA Suite related componentry, as well as for the microservices and container-based stuff that we're just looking at right here. So very similar with all the same supporting information that will be at your disposal within the portal, as well as, of course, within the configured FlexDeploy. All right, So let's go back and look at a couple other things to start wrapping this up. If I go ahead and share that presentation one more time, then we can go ahead and look at a few other things. So we certainly focused on the Jumpstart Demo Labs today. You know all about them at this point, but there are a few other things that you can at least consider, whether that are demos. So we tend to do 60 or 90-minute demos, figure out what the context is, and it might be some of the things we've reviewed today, but given the tech tools and technologies are so vast, we can carve up that context to be whatever is interesting for you. Interactive sessions, so basically real-time interaction versus the mechanism like today where we have a chat facility. And then although it's targeted to prospective customers and partners, as you would guess, and for those of you who are on the call that are partners, we're happy to have these discussions because yes, you're realizing a lot of value for whatever the technologies or whatever the context is that you're using today, but as we continue to expand and release more and more content, well, these are good ways to be able to make sure you're able to adopt them or leverage the ongoing capability. So case in point is we plan to release the next version of FlexDeploy, version 5.1, in about a week or so. And so there's a lot of additional capability in there and some really neat stuff. And so demos can be a good way to showcase some of that. So again, for both prospective customers and partners as well as those who we work with already. Workshops. So workshops are really interesting. We're really starting to put more focus on these workshops because they leverage everything that we showed today for the Jumpstart Demo Labs. But in addition to all of that, what they do is we have a Flexagon expert, right? So a FlexDeploy expert will use WebEx and basically as a mentor or trainer, if you will take you through some level of presentation. And then there gets to be presentation and learning and then hands-on using the same demo labs that we're talking about here today. So you get that interactive nature and it's on about a 4-hour footprint. So you have to carve out a little more time, but that also comes with the ability to have a real-time expert there helping you out. The thing I would note on the workshops, and I guess I could have mentioned this on the demo labs, is that we are working on other demo labs as well that would then parlay into the underpinnings for a workshop. Things like Oracle Integration Cloud is an example, very popular product we're seeing take off in the market, and we've got really good support for that, so we'll showcase that. Things like Oracle Apex and database, right? And then over time, things like serverless with functions, lots of capability that we're investing in there, some of which is already in the product, but we just haven't gotten around to creating these demo labs and the corresponding workshops, which is a heavy focus here in the first half of 2019. Last but not least is the Community Edition. So we do have a FlexDeploy Community Edition that is used basically for trials for the most part. So it's fully featured, everything enabled, so it's quick and easy to install, lots of tutorials and other things for support to help you through that. The point, though, with the Community Edition is it takes a much larger investment or a larger investment to be able to consume the knowledge and get you up to a speed of understanding FlexDeploy and how it can provide value in different particular scenarios. Okay, but we wanted to share that because a lot of that is there, accessible through the website, other means to be able to get a hold of us and leverage that capability. I think the last slide here before we open things up for the questions is related to a webinar series. It should have really been the webinar and workshop series, but we highlighted some things that are in 2018 where we have recordings available on the Flexagon YouTube channel. And I won't read through all of them, but a nice mix of capabilities. It's all recorded, and it's really a combination of presentation and live demos, so certainly live demo in all of them. And so if you're interested in those, check out the YouTube channel. And then this year, we're kicking things up with this webinar, and then we're going to go into heavy-duty mode for workshops, other webinars. These are just some of the examples. But as you want to learn more, please pay attention to both the communication that we send out when there are new webinars and workshops. The website has links to all of this information, and so we look forward to you leveraging all of this, both what's already in existence, as well as things that we're doing in 2019. All right, so let's take some questions, and we can basically see what you guys are thinking. All right, so first question is, if we want a longer session, can we get it? So I assume that means we have these 2-hour sessions, and if we need 4 hours or something a little longer, is that possible? I think the short answer is yes. We like to keep it at 2 hours, but we like to understand the context of what you're trying to achieve. These are certainly meant to be more initial hands-on and or demonstration labs, as I talked about up front, but there are exceptions to the rule, and by all means reach out to us and talk through that, and we'll figure out what to do. Okay, so where do we find these things? Okay, I mentioned this in a little bit, and you'll get an email. You will get an email associated with this, and the links will be right there. And so you can go out to the Jumpstart Demo Lab page, but we'll have direct links, and you'll see that as well as that recording. And then on the website, there's a lot of different information related to FlexDeploy for containers, FlexDeploy for e-business suite, so on and so forth. And so in each one of those spaces, you will have links to this type of information. So I think if you just look at those resources, I think they're going to be pretty obvious how we can find them. All right. Well, there's no more questions. I'll just wait here briefly, and if something pops up, I'm happy to do that. But let me just thank everyone for attending. I hope this was valuable. I hope it gave you a perspective on what it means to be running FlexDeploy with these broader contexts for demo labs on top of Oracle Cloud infrastructure. And it's a great marriage to be able to leverage our FlexDeploy platform, DevOps platform, in concert with the capabilities of the Oracle Cloud, specifically the Oracle Cloud infrastructure, and really help bring the capabilities to life for everyone. All right, I don't see any other questions coming through, so thanks again. Watch for some ongoing communication, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you. Goodbye.